Hi, I'm Bob Archer, senior editor with CE Pro Magazine, and today we are speaking with Casey Clemens from Sonos. Casey, how you doing today?
I'm fantastic. It's a Friday afternoon. How could you be in a bad mood at this time of the day?
You got that right, and it's a beautiful day outside, and it should be a beautiful weekend. So, we are going to talk about home theater today, and specifically Sonos and what Sonos is doing within the home theater category, and how dealers can use Sonos products to meet their clients' home theater objectives.
Looking forward to the conversation.
Awesome. Let's get right into it then. All right. How are evolving consumer expectations around immersive audio and streaming content shaping Sonos's home theater product roadmap?
Yeah, great question, Bob. You can clearly see how consumer expectations are guiding our roadmap, even with some of the very recent enhancements that we've brought to market. We've always had this belief at Sonos that premium products should remain premium for years to come, which is why we're continuing to innovate and look for ways to evolve them even well after they're released. It's a testament to the commitment that we continuously improve the Sonos experience through our software innovation. I think easiest place for us to start today would be Arc Ultra. Arc Ultra is obviously a very, very prevalent speaker in the integration community. Product has continued to push boundaries for what listeners can expect from our soundbar. I don't know how much you know about it, but our sound motion technology that we've built into this product has allowed us to create deeper, richer, more immersive sound than we were able to achieve even in the preceding Arc. What that sound motion is, it's one of the most significant breakthroughs in audio engineering in nearly 100 years. So contrary to like a traditional transducer technology, sound motion is built on compact, lighter transducers that produce a really balanced, natural sound, which actually up to double the bass. So that allows us to create sleeker and slimmer products with even more powerful sound than what I think you're used to out of that size. We use that breakthrough technology in order to get more dramatic depth out of the movies and the music that you're listening to, which is great because, as you know, Bob, consumers are continuing to expect deeper, richer, bigger sound out of smaller and smaller footprints. And we found a way to do that, of course, with Arc Ultra. But it's more than just the hardware itself. As I mentioned earlier, like our products are always supposed to get better over time. So hopefully a lot of the readers have already seen this, but we've brought some really incredible software enhancements out to market to build on top of both the Arc Ultra and the Ace headphones, which pair very well with that soundbar. So the big one for us recently that got a lot of coverage, which we're really excited about because of some of the stuff that we were able to do to address some primary concerns of listeners in the home theater space, is our AI speech enhancement. I don't think it's a well-kept secret that people's main complaint when it comes to watching movies and TV shows these days is I can't hear the dialogue. I want to be able to hear what people are saying in these scenes that are so well acted, so well written. But of course, whether it be a bad sound mix or whether it just be, a TV that just can't handle all the different aspects of the soundtrack at the same time, people are oftentimes turning the remote, going up, down, turning it up when someone's talking, turning it back down when the soundtrack really kicks up with music, or whether there's a big explosion in the background. We use AI in a really cool way where we start to detect those common areas in which speech tends to appear in the mix. And we actually are able to bring that to the forefront so that people don't have to struggle and lean in order to hear what they want to hear when people are speaking to each other. As I mentioned earlier too, it's not just about just the common listener here. It's also about one of the things I'm like really proud of when I think about what Sonos has done recently is that we've actually been able to develop that particular technology alongside the Royal National Institute for Deaf People. So we were actually thinking not only about the typical user of a Sonos soundbar, but also really kind of diving in specifically with people who are suffering from hearing loss and addressing that issue specifically for them. So, it's one thing to just make a really cool product, but it's also another thing to address a common concern for people who are already struggling in this area as well. And the last thing I would say in terms of how we've continued to develop the roadmap based on these consumer needs is, I mentioned earlier, it's not just about the Arc Ultra, it's also about our Ace headphones as well. And that is the announcement of True Cinema that came out around the same time. So True Cinema is actually our ability to measure the acoustics of the room so that what you're hearing and what is rendered inside of your headphones, if you choose to have a personalized listening experience, is much more natural than what you're going to come to expect from a pair of headphones that are connected via Bluetooth to your television. We're actually able to use the things that are going on around you in that space in order to make it feel like, that you're not even wearing headphones because you're having that personalized listening experience just for yourself, but it's feeling like you're actually sitting in the room and listening to it live outside. So I think we've done some pretty cool stuff to actually address the consumer needs that are out there right now.
Okay, Casey, I think this next question kind of builds off your response for that first question. Sonos has emphasized ease of use and wireless connectivity for a long time. How do those philosophies align with current market trends, including integrator expectations as well as homeowner expectations?
Yeah, I'm gonna date myself a little bit on this one because I started at Sonos back when the idea of wireless audio was kind of a novel concept. We were still relatively new. I came in about 12 years ago. It was about 3 months prior to us launching the Play One for the first time. And back then it was a wireless was a nice to have in home technology, but it's become the expectation for both consumers and integrators. While we, especially our professional installers, know that there is a time and a place for wired installations, I think the de facto method of transmitting data inside the home is wireless, right? And the good news is that the evolving nature of home networks have really laid a more solid foundation in being able to deliver upon that promise of rock solid wireless audio. Um, a big shout out to, of course, the networking teams that we work with all throughout the industry who have built much more robust networks. We really appreciate that the home network inside the house has gotten quite a bit more stable and is able to do a lot more than when we first started bringing out wireless products. But with every new generation of Sonos products, improved wireless performance is really the table stakes to ensure that we can perform as well as what our users expect. Even so, I will say, like, while wireless continues to be this thing that we all need to aspire to, because of course it is the expectation, against this wireless backdrop, we still know that there are environments that require that like extra level of reliability, which is why we launched Aero 100 Pro this year. So we're thought about as a wireless company, but even with the Aero 100 Pro, which is our first PoE device, it still allows our users to experience that joy of wirelessly controlling their music. But for an installer, they can provide a system that is less reliant on the bandwidth available from their wireless network. And we all, me and you included, asking more and more of our routers and our mesh networks every day. So sometimes having that additional level of reliability can be huge.
Okay, taking a look at the category of home theater through the lens of Sonos, what products for Sonos are currently driving the category for the company, and what do those product sales tell you about possibly where the industry is heading?
Yeah, so similar to your first question, one thing I would say is that we are constantly reviewing market trends and looking at the data, and that is driving how we build our product to make sure that we're fitting the needs of every consumer out there. And right now, I would say we have a really good balance of products in that category that suit most every need out there. So, you start at something like our Sonos Ray, which is a great product for smaller rooms or secondary listening areas. You move up to a Sonos Beam if you have a cozier media room, but still want something like that virtual Atmos experience that a Sonos Beam can provide, all the way up to the Arc Ultra, which we've talked about a lot already, which really can take your TV experience watching to the next level totally. Um, for CE Pro, like that for you guys and your listeners and readers, Arc Ultra is obviously the top product for us. We know that our integrators are oftentimes serving the most discerning customers, and so our flagship soundbar is the go-to product for them. And of course, for our installers, most of the time they're also getting the most out of that every experience in those major media rooms by adding a sub, adding some Era 300s as rears to get that full spatial audio experience. And it's great because the trends that you're seeing outside of Sonos are showing you that larger TVs are being purchased at a greater rate than ever before. So we need to be able to provide that type of audio experience that mirrors that kind of mini theater experience that I think people are expecting in their media room. So looking at the way the category is growing, we believe we've kind of got the right solution for anybody who's looking to take that audio listening experience in that room to the next level.
Okay, I think um, getting into our next question, that we can, looking back over the, say, the past couple of decades of the home theater category and consumer electronics, we can be thankful that the industry's moved on from black boxes uh, into more stylish solutions that better complement homeowners' interior spaces. How is Sonos as a company dealing or thinking about the integration of its products into modern home interiors?
Yeah, I'm having flashbacks as you're asking me that question of some of the earliest installs I was ever part of, long before I worked for Sonos. And yeah, you weren't selling any of the products based on the aesthetic quality of the product, were you? You were simply selling it because of the usefulness of what it was actually doing. But I'm always proud to say, like, our design philosophy has always been to build products that blend into the space rather than stick out like a sore thumb. I'll continue to look at Arc Ultra as a great example of where, particularly in the home theater, we've leaned into things like rounded edges, things like continuous grill patterns. All of this is to avoid pulling attention away from the other design elements of the space. In a perfect world, a listener is only going to be thinking about Sonos product when they have a wow listening moment while watching, their favorite movie or listening to their favorite album. We don't want you thinking, look at how good that soundbar looks as I'm watching the television. We want you to think, wow, this sounds incredible. Oh, that must be the investment I made in my Sonos system.
Okay, let's look a little bit at the relationship between Sonos and your dealers. What role within the smart home industry, custom install market, um, does Sonos play with their dealers in terms of home theater strategy? How are you investing into that relationship with dealers?
Yeah, well, Bob, we've known each other for a while now, and it is the number one thing I care about is making sure that we're actually listening to our dealers and actually providing an experience that dealers can take advantage of, both from a business perspective, but also to build a great relationship with a brand like Sonos. I've alluded to it a lot in terms of this conversation, but when we think about how we bring our flagship products to market, we oftentimes think about the professional channel because for us, the professional channel is really where these products live. So we've talked a lot about our culture, but I'll give another example in the home theater space where our professional channel is a huge part of our business. A lot of people aren't looking for anything on the wall or anything, that is coming out and taking away from all the other aesthetic elements of the room. So a favorite piece of install or sorry, favorite piece of equipment that our installers will often lean into is amp with some in-ceiling or in-wall speakers. So that for those who have never used it before, our amp actually does have HDMI intake so that you can actually plug that in if you want to put it behind a television or in a rack somewhere. And that way you can still have that Sonos experience without having anything sticking up off the wall. So we think about our installers often when we think about how we actually bring kind of those top end flagship products to market and making sure that it's showing up in a way that, like I said, our most discerning end users are definitely expecting. I would say that our most straightforward investment in the channel is the products that we deliver. But a lot of that actually also comes to where we develop those products and how we develop those products. We get a lot of feedback from dealers, and I say this all the time. If you are a dealer of Sonos, you ever get an opportunity to fill out a survey or join our sounding board, please do. But in particular, I always like to talk about our dealer advisory board, who we meet with regularly. Their feedback has been some of the driving force that has been uh, guiding us in terms of some of the things that we've done over the last couple of years. Things like our limited distribution strategy for Era 100 Pro, for instance, or even the introduction of Sonos Pro, which has included many features that have come directly from our dealers. And then lastly, I would say, we do continue to invest in also programs. Like I like to point to our upgrade program all the time. Some of our installers have been with us for 10, 15, 20 years. Our upgrade program gives them a unique tool to be able to go back to clients they've worked with and say, hey, I know I installed a play bar for you 7 years ago, but I've got a really compelling reason for you now to want to upgrade to a new Arc Ultra and kind of lean into the new experiences that you're able to have with our newest Sonos products.
Okay, I'm really interested in your response to this next question because I think it kind of reflects the growth of the industry in terms of back in the day, it was dedicated theaters with um, these very ultra expensive systems, amplifiers, and speakers, and CRT projectors. To date myself, but today it's different. Now, let me ask you this as that kind of prefix. Are you seeing more integrators designing flexible media spaces rather than those dedicated theaters that I alluded to a second ago? And how is that shift in addressing the market impacting Sonos's product design and development?
Well, first, Bob, I just got to say, I was wondering how far down the rabbit hole you were going to go with old technology there. I was going to see how far back in time we could go, but I think CRTs was a good place to stop. So,
That's going back, yeah.
yes, by the way, I still remember trying to pull CRT televisions off the top shelf of a warehouse and, being about a 140 pound, 19-year-old kid. And I almost killed myself the first time I picked one of those up. So having some flashbacks. But to answer your question, how are we seeing installers kind of adapt into this new world of whether they're leaning into the home theater space or whether they're leaning into kind of these multi-purpose media rooms? The honest answer of what I'm seeing is I think I'm seeing a lot of bifurcation in many aspects of our professional installation channel. And that is inclusive of like what we're seeing in the home theater category, as you're alluding to. You have a lot of installation companies out there who are leaning into their strengths and really developing business strategies that work for them. Some of our partners are true specialists in the dedicated home theater space, and if you're a true specialist in this space, you don't have to do 100 of those a year to maintain a solid business. Others, on the other hand, I'd say they would recognize that the ease of installation and upkeep involved in a really well-designed media room and giving the clients the ability to maintain a multi-purpose space that suits their media needs is really important for them. I think it really comes down to every one of our professional partners just kind of understanding their own business desires of what do we want to do? Do we want to do really unique custom installs every time we go out there and do, a handful every year? Or do we want to serve a greater audience and be able to do something that is a bit more rinse and repeat, for lack of a better term, but certainly something that's a bit more easy to get out and be able to provide that experience to many more users? I'd say similarly to home theater, I think you're seeing, the same thing going on in the control space right now, right? I think some dealers would go, would tell you, hey, I really lean into my one automation partner. I want everything through one control. But there's also a lot of installers out there who are saying, I'm having more and more clients who are interested in that multi-app experience. They've grown up using these devices like an iPhone. I'm actually okay with it. So similar to the home theater category, I think, one thing I think about with all of our partners is it's about leaning into your strengths and really kind of running the business that makes the most sense for you and the clientele in your area.
I absolutely agree about that multi-app user experience. We hear more and more about that now, and it makes sense on many different levels. Um, my final question is not to give away any Sonos secrets or anything, but what can dealers expect from the company, perhaps in the terms of new products or dealer programs as we move into the back half of 2025 and into 2026 and beyond?
Well, I'll start by saying that it's not a secret thing, that home theater is a major pillar of our business at this point. I think anyone who's ever looked through any of our earnings reports or has done some digging into the company knows that, home theater is not a side project for us. It is one of our key things that we look to push the envelope on as a company. So while I can't promise what's next and I can't talk about the next big thing, I will say there will be no slowing down on our end in terms of what we want to do in this space. I do want to say, like, as I mentioned earlier today, I'm still looking forward to hearing how our dealers are leveraging some of the software enhancements that we've just rolled out. As I mentioned earlier, like the AI speech enhancement and True Cinema, really recent updates. And so they're just beginning to make their way into new projects. They're just beginning to make their way into people's homes who have some of our more recent products already installed in their spaces. So I am actively awaiting some more feedback from our channel because as I was testing out some of these things at home, I was truly blown away. So I'm super excited for people to see what we've already done. Second, I would say, in terms of what we can do more of in this space and what our professional integrators should be excited about in home theater, I always like to also highlight our partnerships that really enhance the space. So I don't know how many people are aware, but a couple of months ago, back in May, we actually announced that our Works with Sonos certification extended onto Yamaha's Advantage line. So their AVRs are actually able to work more closely with the Sonos software through a Sonos port. And so if you are somebody who is still using a traditional AVR, that's now another great option for you. On top of that, we actually just officially certified the new search integration through Control 4. So again, if you're one of those integrators who believes in everything going through one single control platform, Control 4 is now one of those options that actually is able to use the search functionality directly through their Sonos system. So I'd say beyond the stuff that we've just announced through first party, we're also really excited to talk about those deeper collaborations that we have out there that I think serve our professional integrators well.
Casey, that sounds great. Thank you. I want to thank you for taking time out of your day to speak to me about what's going on with Sonos and its latest home theater products and initiatives. And I recommend to anybody wanting to learn more about Sonos to go to cepro.com or sonos.com. Casey, thank you.
Thank you, Bob, and thank you everybody else. Have a great day.
Bye, Casey.